Well, welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, James. Happy to be with you.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
Yeah, it is, man. We always have a great time together.
Absolutely. A lot going on in the city.
Yes, it is. And today we have one of the city's best. Christian man, brother, been working in the kingdom of God, not only in the kingdom of God, but he's been working in Indianapolis for over 30 years, I believe.
Yeah. And now he has the chief position, as it were.
Yeah.
He is the chief of police for the city of Indianapolis, somewhat 1,700 employees.
Right.
And it's first year.
Yes, first year. And we're going to see what he has in store for the city of Indianapolis as it relates to public safety. I think that's good.
Yeah, he has the most basic responsibility of city government.
Right.
And that's protecting the people in the county.
Yeah, that's basic but difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're going to let him tell us what's going on, and we're going to encourage him. I think that's what this is all about. Real People, Real Voices is encouraging those who are out there in public, making things happen for Central Indiana.
Right. We're certainly glad that you're here, and we thank you for joining us each and every time you tune in on Sundays at 5:30 p.m. and on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock p.m. right here on WHMB TV 40. Also, go to our YouTube channel, WHMB TV 40 YouTube channel. You can watch this program and others that you might have missed. We have a lot for you on today, so stay tuned right here to Real People, Real Voices. We'll be back after this. Well, welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Moore.
We want to bring on our first guest, Chief Brian Roche. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Pleasure being here.
And it's happy to have you, Chief.
Yeah, pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
On your new post over at IMPD, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. And although being the chief is new for you, the department is not new for you.
Right, I've been a police officer for, it'll be I'll start my 27th year in April, so 26 years.
Thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. It really has. It's been enjoyable.
So how did you get into policing?
So I was a missionary in Italy for 2 years. Out of high school, I went to college for a year and decided to be a missionary. It's a proselyting mission, so you're talking about the Word of God and gospel. I did that in Italy for 2 years. While I was there, I had an exit interview. And one of the guys that interviewed me, they talk about your experiences there and then what is it you want to do afterwards. And he happened to be an FBI agent that was stationed over there. And I said I wanted to use my language and I wanted to spend 2 years of serving people and I wanted to continue to do that. And he asked me if I'd ever thought of law enforcement. So a lot of people will tell you they grew up thinking about law enforcement, but it didn't really come to me until after I'd kind of been serving for a while and realized that that was something that I wanted to continue to do. Came home, finished school, got on the police department. Actually, the police department called me, asked me for my pants size. So I figured I was in. So been there ever since.
And it's interesting, you say it's about serving people, which fundamentally it takes that kind of mindset, I think, to be a really good police officer. And I'm hoping, and we'll talk about recruitment in the next segment, but I'm hoping that the young men and women who come onto the force, that you'll be able to impart that same mindset into them if they don't already have it.
Right. No, that's the mindset that works, I think. It's important that we get good candidates that aren't there because of the authority or the badge, but are there to serve people, like you said.
Absolutely.
Not only that, I'm impressed about the fact that you're going to be doing a lot of engagement as the chief. And I think our city needs that from our police department and public service. Give us some information as it relates to what you've been doing over the last 20 years versus now.
Sure. So over the last 20 years, I definitely recognize the need of the community and to engage people. It's it's been obvious to me for a long time that we can't do it ourselves. There's a lot of problems that you can't arrest your way out of. The criminal justice system has its purpose, but some of the ways that we've used it here recently is not necessarily as effective as it should be, and doesn't respect people, I think. So as chief, it's really the only thing I've done the last few months is try and engage people, identify those people that actually can have influence in our youth and our community's lives. So during that process, you meet people like you all and others, and you start to determine, okay, how do you corral all that energy and all that influence, and how can I use that in a way that we continue to do law enforcement, but do it in a way that, as we were speaking earlier, we're doing it for the people and for the community,
Right.
not necessarily to the community.
And I think it's phenomenal, to say you're going to do it for the people instead of impressing upon them enforcement without engagement. Right. And so that's important to me.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the fact that you talk about meeting people in the community, developing relationships with the people in the community and with leaders in the community. I've always thought that's important before something bad or before something tragic happens, that we already have these relationships.
Yeah, I think that's not only me as a chief, but I think probably nationwide chiefs, that's one of the things that keeps themselves up. Things that are bad happen, and as long as we have that relationship before that occurs, we can have some difficult and crucial discussions and create better situations out of what may be a bad situation.
Yeah, I also think, James, in conjunction with what you said, we've had experiences to where the relationships have not been, I guess you would say, at a point to where we can talk about issues and put them together and work. And I think this is going to be something new for the leadership of Indianapolis, to have a chief that says, let's talk about things before things happen, and let's come up with some strategy to handle those things. And I think that the community, I believe, will welcome that.
I think there's some expectations from the community that I
Yeah.
need to fill, and I think they need to know what our enforcement strategies are before we do them, and we hope to kind of get that kicked off next week with the meeting we're having with the community.
It's great. It's great.
So when the mayor asked you to be chief, was it yes right away, or did you have to think about it for a minute?
So I had to think about it. I've been on the police department for 26 years. It's quite a challenge, but after talking with him, understanding that we both were thinking along the same lines. I never aspired for this position, but I've been in positions where you think, I'd like to do this or I'd like to do that, and so it's an opportunity to do that. So he asked me to interview. We talked about my vision. He talked about his vision, and they meshed. We think along the same lines, so it was probably a calling more than anything else. I felt I needed to do it, and felt I needed to answer that call.
Wow, that's unique.
Yeah.
Not a job, but it's a calling now.
Answering the call.
Yeah, and I think that's something we need to respect. A man that feels he's answered the call to engage and enforce our community and help our community become a better community. I think that's exciting.
Yeah. And we have the new Chief of Police, Chief Brian Roche, here with us today. And certainly we're glad that you're here with us today. We have a lot more to talk about with our new chief. And if you have questions that you would like for us to entertain, you can go to our Facebook page, Real People, Real Voices, and you can post those questions on our Facebook page. Dr. Moore, there's a lot going on in the city of Indianapolis. Last year, record number of homicides
Right.
that trumped the, and no pun intended,
Right.
the year before, record number of homicides.
Okay.
And the chief, of course, you have a plan. Mm-hmm. And when we come back from break, if you could share a little bit of that plan
Sure.
with our viewing audience. And we also want to talk about recruitment.
Oh, yes. We want to talk about people having an opportunity to become police officers.
Yeah, and those of you who would like to become a police officer, we have a special video that we want you to take a look at during the show on today. The police department is looking for some good folks just like you.
Just be reminded, Brother James and myself are too old to do this, so we're looking for recruits.
We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. We're here with Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Chief Roche. And just before the break, we were talking about the high number of homicides we've had in the city of Indianapolis. Your plans for bringing that number down?
So a couple of things I think I've been tasked with as the new chief is, number one, bringing violence down. We had, I'll throw some numbers out there and let me explain them, but we had 171 homicides. 149 of those were murders. We typically talk about that lower number because it's a criminal act, but those other numbers are important too, and so we want to start talking about that larger number because it is a death and there's things that we can learn from that. In 2015, we had 430 non-fatal shootings. That's a number we don't talk about. Yeah. 2016, we had 430 non-fatal shootings. And we didn't talk about that number either. And the only difference between a non-fatal shooting and a homicide is maybe bullet placement, health care, emergency responders responding a little sooner or being called sooner. So that number really scares me, and I think if we can, and if you look at the situations on non-fatal shootings and also on homicides, they're typically the same: narcotics, domestics, arguments, conflict resolution type stuff. So I really think if we can, and the people in non-fatal shootings are still alive. So I'm really thinking if we can impact those non-fatal shootings, then we'll have an impact on our homicides. So that's been our focus. In order to do that, we had to make some gains between our two divisions, our investigations divisions, that typically has all the information around that aggravated assault or that non-fatal shooting, and also our patrol division that unfortunately was in the mode of responding, calling the detective out, and then forgetting about it. And so we're trying to increase that communication because so many of these go unsolved because they are, a lot of our victims, believe it or not, are uncooperative for various reasons. And so when that detective figures out that that's going to be a difficult case to solve in terms of people not being cooperative, he's going to push that back to patrol, and we have flex teams and narcotics teams that are going to start focusing on that individual incident and see what initiatives they can do to get their arms around it. And probably the most important part, like we discussed earlier, is that community engagement part. So that's where the community in that geographic area really could come into play, because it's sharing that information that Thomas and Johnny are fighting over a girl. And you may have an auntie in your parish or in your church who is familiar with that, and can the community get their arms around them so that they don't end up in a homicide or in jail?
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. Non-fatals. Community is really not aware of non-fatals, but they're just aware of homicides. And so that will be interesting how that is conveyed to the community and how they will help approach that issue.
Yeah. We hope so. It's something we haven't talked about. It's something that's concerning because the clearance rate on those cases is very low. And I think, again, it goes back to that relationship with the community and the trust of the police. How many of those could be solved if we had a little better relationships?
Tearing down walls.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, Chief, IMPD is recruiting or hiring new police officers, and particularly an appeal being made for minority police officers.
Right.
How difficult has it been to get new officers or minority police officers?
So during this time of, and I think across the nation, there's not everybody is raising their hand to be a police officer, let alone those in our minority community. Our department has, right today, we have 1,616 sworn police officers. We have some reserves and civilian staff, but just sworn police officers, 1,616. Only 14% of those are African American. If you just take that minority group, only 14%. I think Marion County is 28%. The working group, which is the group that we would target, I think is like 18 or 19%. So in each class, I need to have at least that. My goal is to have 20% in that minority group, African American, within the class. One thing that this mayor has done that we haven't had for years and years is I know this year how many police officers I can hire. I know next year how many I can hire, and I know the next year. So what that allows me to do is break that up into two classes, and then I can give our recruiters an idea of, I need 10 African Americans in this class. And so instead of spreading that wide net, trying to talk to everyone, they start focusing. They go to churches, they go to community events, they go to historically black colleges, job fairs, and they know that they're looking for a certain number and can really focus strategically, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. You know, that's a strategic move.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Chief, thank you for taking out time to come and talk with us and our community on today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I think you're going to show a video. I appreciate the efforts that you guys put into that video for our recruiting, and
You're
I think
welcome.
it'll have an impact.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome. And thank you for watching. We always appreciate you tuning in to Real People, Real Voices. We have the rundown coming up here in just a little bit, so please don't go away. Also, please don't forget to go to our YouTube channel as often as you can. Subscribe so that you can watch every show that you might have missed, and you can watch this one over
And over again.
We'll be back after this.
I believe we can foster greater cooperation with our police department, with collaboration between faith-based leaders, community leaders, and police department. Come up with positive agendas that will help and strengthen our communities.
One of the first benefits of being a police officer, I would say, is steady income. Secondly, I would say being able to serve something bigger than yourself. I've always had a love for people. I have always been inquisitive, and I have always had a gift for gab. This job has allowed me to do all three. Being able to protect and serve the community, being able to support young people, being a police officer in the Police Athletic League here in Indianapolis for 15 or more years have afforded me the opportunity to work alongside young people, just as officers did for me when I was growing up in Marion. Being able to give back and support others has been amazing.
What I've found is in the many community meetings that I've gone to, it has allowed me to develop relationships with numerous police officers. And I've found the more time that I can spend with police officers, the better our relationship have become. I think it's very important that we need to develop better relationships with the police officers in our city before something bad happens.
The core requirements to join IMPD is you must be between the ages of 21 and 36. No convictions of a felony. You must not have any convictions of a misdemeanor battery, domestic battery. You must have a valid driver's license. You must pass a mandatory drug screening. You must be a U.S. citizen. You must have a high school diploma or a GED. As African Americans and minorities, we can strive to be change agents. We can be role models for each other and for those officers, younger officers that are coming behind us. Having a diverse workforce will reflect more positively within the community. And as women, We seem to be better communicators, and we use our communication skills to help diffuse volatile situations.
I am personally supporting the recruitment of minorities into the police department because I believe every police department should reflect the community in which it serves. And so because of the growth in minorities in Marion County, I believe our police department needs to take on a change. Those minorities should be in all aspects of the police department, from supervisors all the way down to patrolmen.
Hi, I'm James Jackson. I want to encourage you to become a police officer serving on the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Serving in our community is one of the best things that you can do. And what better way to serve than as a police officer? Our city needs you. We need you. I need you. Thanks.
I'm Pastor Wayne Moore, pastor of the Olivet Baptist Church, president of the Baptist Ministers Alliance. I encourage young men and young women to get involved in their community by becoming a public servant. The IMPD Police Department is a great place to start, has great opportunity, and I hope you will consider that in your future.
We are committed to diversifying our workforce so that we can reflect the community in which we serve. If you or someone that you know is looking for a career in law enforcement, please visit our website at joinimpd.indy.gov or give us a call at 317-327-IMPD. We need you.
Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm James Jackson, your host.
And I'm Pastor Moore, your co-host.
And I'm Faith McKinney, your producer.
What a wonderful segment with our Chief of Police.
Yes, I thought that was a great opportunity for Indianapolis, Central Indiana, basically, to meet our new chief.
Yeah.
He did a great job.
And he has a huge challenge before him, coming in after a record number of homicides. I like what he talked about with regard to it's not just the 140 or so criminal homicides, but looking at the total number.
Yeah, the non-fatal.
171, and then going a little further,
The non-fatal.
and looking at the non-fatal. Right?
So just
400.
imagine if there are over, 400
About 400 or so, yeah.
non-fatal homicides and almost 200 fatal homicides. That's a lot of shooting.
Yes.
That's a lot of crime.
Yeah, a lot of
Oh,
violence.
gosh.
Yeah, a lot of violence. I guess that's the way to say it instead of a lot of shooting. A lot of violence.
Well, that's a lot of shooting, too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people getting shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but I respect
over
that.
400
Yeah.
non-fatals in 1 year.
Absolutely. Can you imagine a man who came from a missionary background, in Italy, and he was very calm and very placid. He doesn't seem like the typical police officer, but he is the chief. And, it's sort of gives me a little peace of mind knowing that somebody with a steady hand and steady head is leading the police department.
Yeah, a good temperament.
Yeah, and I
That's
tell you,
it.
what's so ironic about it is he has to enforce, but at the same time, he wants to make a strong effort to engage.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to get information that leads to better clearing rates or solving those crimes, it takes a good relationship with the community.
And not only to reduce clearing rate, but just to be involved with the community is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Right. Well, since you two can't be police officers
Right.
because
Well, he might be able
Well,
to.
I can be.
He can. But I
It depends
can't.
on what day, though. Sometimes you feel that age.
Yeah.
Yeah. We out of time. Thank you for joining us again on today. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.